Call school board meeting on June 10th to order. Roll call, Mr. Bizarre.
Here.
Ms. Conforti. Here, she's got no voice tonight, so she'll be using her little cards. Ms. Hurst is absent. Mr. Rivas
Here.
and Mr. Corral, myself, is here. All right, item number 2, public communication, closed session items. Members of the public may address the board on items not on the agenda. Speakers will be allowed 3 minutes unless the time limit is waived by a majority of the board. The board will allow comments by members of the agenda or of the public on an agenda item during consideration for the item. The board may limit the total time for public input on each item to 20 minutes. With board consent, the president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation, depending on the topic and the number of topics and persons wishing to be heard. The president may take a poll of speakers for or against a particular issue and may ask that additional persons speak only if they have something new to add. Complaints against specific district employees should be resolved through the district's personnel complaint procedure. The right to address the board does not exempt the speaker from any potential liability for defamation. The proceedings of the board are recorded and are part of a public record. Is there anybody tonight wishing to speak to the board? All right, seeing none. We will head to a closed session at 5:02 p.m. All right, welcome back. We're going to reconvene the June 10th meeting tonight. If everybody could please rise and open up the flag salute. Ready? Yeah. United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. Item B, report out of action items taken in closed session. We had one tonight. The board voted to deny the claim. Actually, two things. Deny the claim identified on agenda item closed session item A. Passes 4-0 with one board member absent. That was Mrs. Hurst. And the second item was fact-finding hearing conducted by administrative review, case number 23-2405. It is moved that the Board of Education find there is cause to expel student 38063 from all schools in the district for violation of educational code 48915 alpha, causing serious physical injury to another person except in self-defense. Student number 38063 shall be expelled from the remainder of the spring semester of the 23-24 school year and the fall semester of the 24-25 school year. However, student 38063 expulsion order shall be suspended and placed on probationary status as long as they adhere with the items and terms of the rehabilitation plan. That also passed 4-0 with one board member absent, and that was Mrs. Hurst. Item number 5, public communication agenda and non-agenda items. Members of the public may address the board on items not on the agenda. Speakers will be allowed 3 minutes unless the time is waived by the majority of the board. The board will allow comments by members of the public on each agenda item during consideration for the item. The board may limit the total time for public input on each item to 20 minutes. With board consent, the president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation, depending on the topic and the number of persons wishing to be heard. The president may take a poll of speakers for or against a particular issue and may ask that additional persons speak only if they have something new to add. Complaints against specific district employees should be resolved through the district's personal complaint procedure. The right to address the board does not exempt the speaker from any potential liability of defamation. The proceedings of this board are recorded and are part of the public record. All right. I guess we'll do all later, right? Or you just want to do them now? All right, we'll go ahead and start. Our first speaker for tonight. It's actually going to be comment on item number 9A. We'll just knock off these right now before we get started on the meeting. Mr. Scott Felber, come on up to the podium and address the board.
All right. Can you tell me right now if that 3-minute thing is going to happen?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. All right, I'll go fast. I've been a teacher and a coach of multiple sports at Orston for 23 years now. Basically, I've been in a school in our district for my entire life. My son just finished going all the way through the system, and my daughter's a junior now. I care about this community, and I care about the kids in our school, every one of them. And tonight I'm here because of a decision that's going to be made on a policy about athletic eligibility. The CIF philosophy states that the bylaws are, I'm going to try to go fast. They keep the focus on athletic participation as a privilege, not a right, and reinforce principle that students attend school to receive an education first. Athletic participation is secondary. Even the board policy that is coming up in section 9A starts off with the district shall encourage and support student participation in extracurricular and co-curricular activities without compromising the integrity and the purpose of the educational system. When I began my teaching career at Oristimba 23 years ago, our district bought into that philosophy so much so that our standards went above the CIF policy at just a 2.0, and we actually required that students have no Fs as well. Over the years, beginning like before COVID sometime, we gradually reduced our requirements. We started with the addition of an eligibility review board. It provided a second chance for students who did get an F or who were ineligible. And I actually like that because it gave a second chance to kids that really needed one. And it's not easy for everybody. But the thing is that these kids had to come to a meeting and meet with someone and develop a plan on talking about what happened, why they're not eligible, what are we going to do to fix it? These are the steps it takes to get better. And we held them to every single step. And if they didn't follow those steps, then they became ineligible. And they could use that one time during 9th and 10th grade and one during 11th and 12th. And so that was that. After that, the next thing we did is we eventually maybe got tired of doing that. So we just said, okay, we're just going to let them get an F anyway, and we're not going to have a meeting anymore. We're just going to accept it. So that basically put us at the minimum CIF rules. With an F is allowed, but you just still need to have a 2.0. Again, not the end of the world, but I think it kind of started us down a slippery slope. After that, all of these changes came by. We offered study hall or theory classes that could give students, an easy A or a GPA boost. We decided that when you do fail a class, you can use a credit recovery system. And sometimes that could be done. You can redo an entire semester class. It's been done in minutes. And then you're allowed to just jump in and put a uniform on and go back and represent our school. It's a little bit better now with the way those classes are, but I don't think anybody's going to tell you that those classes are the same as an Oristimba class. They're even denoted differently on a transcript. It was, where am I at? It was actually not uncommon at this time for a student to arrogantly remind their teacher of that fact and say, I don't need to pass your class. I'll make it up later. So that was that step. Next one, we decided that we would just ignore quarters and we would check their grades at the end of a semester. So we don't check them anymore in the middle of their sport. We check it at the end. That meant that fall and spring sport athletes could potentially fail every single class without ever missing a day of their sport. This one hit hard in the classroom because once the message was out that quarter grades didn't count for anything, it was like a license for students to not pay attention in class. I mean, we all procrastinate a little bit, but you can imagine when they're not going to check your grades until Christmas. And then this also inequitably hit the winter sports because winter sports, the semester actually, like I coach girls basketball, and the semester actually did hit right in the middle of my season. So girls, I had a girl on my team that was kicked off of our team in the middle of the year because of her grades, but she had just seen people play in the fall during their sport and they had worse grades than her and nothing happened to them. And then COVID hit after that, which is where, we kind of tried to make an excuse for everybody, but that was COVID. And then after COVID, we just pretty much kept it the same to where now we've completed from one of the most stringent schools in the state to one where I can't find one with lower standards, to be honest. If you want me to stop, I'll stop.
Go ahead and wrap up. You're good.
Okay. So the funny thing that happened is while all these changes were happening, our board policy didn't even change. So the board policy that I'm here because we're trying to change a board policy. I understand there's like a BP and an AR and all of this and that. And I just don't understand why we're going to pass a BP when we already have an AR and we're we can easily just go by that AR. And the BP that we're gonna have, it just says, the ones that is on the item to accept today, it just says, the only thing it says in there, it's very vague, it just talks about a grading period. And it doesn't say anything about credit recovery and these classes that are not the same as ours in the classroom. And when you make something vague like that, then you can really, I realize that it's just something that's kind of copy and pasted for a bunch of schools. The lawyer basically collects your money and gives all the schools the same papers, is what it looks like to me when I go and look through these things. But the ARs, I just don't understand why we can't just make sure that we have what we want right now, so that we don't pass a board policy that says minimum, and then different people could come in and do different things, and not technically they'd still be following that board policy. You know what I mean? That's my problem. That's why I had a problem when I first found out about this, is because I thought that we had decided to go to the board policy, the AR 6145 that we currently have. And then I was told that we're going to change our board policy, which at the time I didn't even know that was different, but we're going to change our board policy to be something that's very vague. And let me just say one thing and then I'll stop. Okay. So as a coach, I love having great players on my team, but we're warriors, and I'm much more concerned about what type of people they are on my team than what kind of player. I hope that all my players know the name on the front of their jersey is always more important than the name on their back. And that's why I never put names on the back of my jerseys as a coach. We represent Orest High School, and we should be proud of that. Our school provides the uniforms, equipment, playing fields, gyms, transportations, coaches, officials, practice times, everything our student athletes have access to, tens of thousands of dollars for each sport that I know you guys know because you approve it all. And all that we ask of our student athletes is that they come to school every day and try their best. That's it. And we need to make sure that it's a privilege to be on a team. And we've gotten to the point where the term try hard, I don't know if you've heard this, it's a derogatory term now. When a kid tries hard, we're like, oh, that's a try hard. Well, I'll skip. I was a try hard in the classroom and on the field. And that's what I want Orest to be known for. Tryhards are the kind of people that the staff at NCLUSD want to send out into the world. Don't get me wrong. I know that, school's not easy for everybody. We have strengths and weaknesses. I've seen many kids who struggle in my classes, but I can't think of any that gave their absolute best every day and still failed. I can't even think of a teacher who would let a student fail if they gave their best every day. So being a tryhard is everything everything we do is more important than a grade in any class, even math, I'll say. And it's a try hard that I want to be my friend, my spouse, my employer, my employee, my doctor, my lawyer, my cook, my teacher, my coach, my student, my point guard. Okay. There's one lesson that we should be teaching our kids. It is that no board policy should ever be less than that. I don't think, if we're going to say the eligibility standards for our students in this district, I don't think it's too much to ask that they be a try hard. And so I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you. Coach K, you're up next. You don't want me to try to say your name, but I mean, I'll try if that's what you want.
No worries, no worries. Good evening, everyone. Everybody here, parents, staff members, board members, everybody. My name is Charlie Kothenbeetle. I'm a teacher, a coach, and the student council advisor at Orest High School, where I've worked going into now my 6th year. I'm not here to go into a whole lot of great detail about the specifics about eligibility, but as we can see from a lot of the people that have come here today, and I'm sure a lot of the conversations that have gone on, there's a lot of opinions, there's a lot of ideas, and there's a lot of information out there about what eligibility should be, about the standards that we should hold. So what I am here to talk to you about is, because of these different opinions, ideas, and pieces of information, for us to add more time, to give more time to the thought on this topic. It is something that when we have a student council meeting, if there is, when they go through all the processes, if there is a need for more discussion, we take that time. So to make sure that we actually do our due diligence as a community, and give that extra time. So what I'm asking for is, in all honesty, to table this, to postpone, to allow ourselves to come together as a community, to get all of the stakeholders involved, to get community members, to get parents, to get staff, to get administrators, to get our district office, sit down and discuss these issues, because there is a whole lot of information, ideas, and opinions out there. I mean, we just heard Mr. Felber come up here and detail quite a bit of it that I think we need to listen to. And before we come to any sort of decision on things like this, I think we really need to sit down and take that necessary time, hear from the people that obviously do care so deeply about this before we rush and make any rash decisions or rush decisions. Again, this is something that means a lot. Eligibility is something that it was kind of mentioned by, Mr. Felber about the idea that it is a privilege. And I've always kind of viewed things on like 3 scales, participating in extracurriculars are not necessarily a right. They're not necessarily even a privilege. They're something that you earn. And I think that we need to sit down, we need to discuss what those standards are that we're going to hold our students to. We need to make sure we hear from all of the people that have those opinions, have those ideas, have that information before we come to any sort of decision. So that's what I'm using my time here to address you and ask for, is that extra time to meet together. Thank you very much and enjoy your evening.
Thanks, sir. Ms. Carly Felber.
Hi, I'm Carly Felber, and I agree with what Scott and Coach K said, but I was a student here when we had the most strict standards for sports eligibility, and now I'm a teacher here when we've had the lowest. And as a teacher, I've noticed a big shift in behavior of my students. Just like Scott said, how they've just blatantly told you, your class doesn't matter because I can go make it up online in a couple days. We even had somebody ineligible for a game a specific day, and he did something online that same day and played in the game that night. So I didn't agree with that as a teacher, as a coach. And one thing that I did with my teams, I coach boys and girls volleyball, and I hold my students or my athletes to a higher standard, and I check their grades every Monday. And if they have an F, they are not allowed to play. I cannot kick them off the team because of our school and board policy, but I temporarily suspend them, and they can come to practice, but they're going to be sitting in the bleachers doing their homework, emailing their teachers to ask if they can reopen assignments, or sometimes their teachers are still at school and I tell them to go physically talk to them in their classroom. And what happens, and I've been doing this ever since I've coached, is it takes maybe 2 days or 3 days and that student doesn't have an F anymore. And I check their grades weekly, and I think when I started it in the beginning, it was more with the boys. I don't think they took me seriously because of, our school policy and how it's happened in all the other sports they play, oh, I have an F, I'm still good. But when they actually saw that I sat them in the bleachers and they weren't able to practice or play in games, they realized, hey, if I really want to play, I'm going to have to get my grades up. So that has worked for me every single year that I've coached. It's something that's very easy to do, and I do it weekly. I don't even do it quarterly. So I just wanted to show you guys an example of me doing something like this that works. So thank you.
Thank you. Felber? Oh. You sure?
I was gonna continue some of this, so I'm good.
You only have a couple more days left with us. You can be in the spotlight. It's recorded on YouTube. Okay.
I'm good right now.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Solano?
Hi, my name is Sandy Solano. I am a 1989 Oristema graduate. Don't figure out how old I am, but that's when I graduated. Both my husband and myself went to school here at Oristema. We've lived here all our lives. We have 4 kids. Our first 3 have already graduated, and our last is a junior this year at OHS. I agree with what they've said so far, Coach K and Carly and Scott. I've been a substitute teacher in the district for 27 years. I've seen the change in the kids. I've seen the change in the staff. It's like the morale has changed. Doesn't matter what we say, they're going to do whatever they want anyway. They're meaning you guys. I've heard from kids, oh, it doesn't matter unless you're a football player. And I know I'm not supposed to say that, but that's what the kids say. They see it, they feel it. And now it's even spilling into baseball because I've heard there was a kid who didn't graduate because he was ineligible, but played the whole entire season. I don't know how you can explain that. I think it's a load of garbage. I think we're in the business to educate our students, not to put out graduates who have just played a sport. That's not what it is. Any sport that my kids have been on, when we go to the banquets, the coaches proudly say, we have a combined or a average GPA of 4.0 or 3.8. I don't know if any other sports say that, but I know what we say. My kids are accountable. The kids on the teams that we're on are accountable. I don't know why it's spilling over from other sports. I don't know why the students are talking back to the teachers and saying it doesn't matter. And they can walk anyway. I've seen that too. I've been in the classrooms and seen how easy the teachers are making it for these kids to pass. I've seen copy the notes on the board. You can use them on the test. Bring in a card. You can use that on the test. Just fill this out. The answers are right here. And I see the zeros and the zeros in the books. I've seen that. I mean, there's nothing else you can do. If they don't want to do it, don't make it any easier for them. Let me see. I went off the script here. And I know we've had a high turnover in here. We've had new board members, a new superintendent, new staff at the DO, new staff at our schools, but that's really not an excuse for what's going on. I hope none of you are thinking, oh, that's when so-and-so was here, or I wasn't on the board at that time. You're here now. Change it now. Make the decision now. And you really don't have to do much, because I like Coach K's idea, but even if you don't want to do a committee, and hopefully not forget about it and ignore it from when school starts, because that happens every year. But hopefully, I mean, if you don't want to do a committee, the board policy is there right now. Just do it right now. It's right there for you. It says quarter, it's ready to go. You can take the easy way out and do that. But you can make a name for yourself and for our warriors. I don't know what else to say. That's it.
Thank you. Derek Solano, you're up next.
How you doing? I wasn't going to speak, but I figured a couple of things got left out, so I want to make sure. My name is Derek Solano. I've had the distinct pleasure of being exactly where you are right now. I've also have the distinct pleasure of being an athletic director in charge of a school of about 2,000 students, where I see these things every day. So I'd like to mention just two quick things. Number one, throughout this whole process, all the phone calls, all the contacts and things, I think one thing is really, really clear. There's been a lack of communication. Okay. And I think if you listen to the speakers before me, that's what they really are looking for. It's just their opportunity to communicate. And if they're wrong, the opportunity to hear what the proper thing is going to be. And that, for example, I understand board policies can be very vague and ARs are very more specific. Okay, well, the AR isn't there for them to see it. It's just the board policy. So when they look at it, it's status quo. So let's kind of just take a step back, publicly say if you want, or just table this and move forward after it's been communicated amongst all the stakeholders what the actual policy is going to be, not just the vague thing that's there. As an athletic director, this is the last thing I'll say. I have the unique opportunity of having to go through all of my athletes and check that they have their physicals and check that they complete the process that you guys use, which is home campus. We use a different one. On the page that that we have specifically on there that it says a 2.0. Student can have 1F. There's waivers, things like that. Okay. It's come to my understanding, just basically from speaking to everybody, that your webpage for home campus still says a 2.0 with 1F. And the quarter grades can be used just like it says there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. And in fact, if you're worried about upsetting parents who may say, oh my gosh, this is different. It's changed. It's not what we thought we were going into it with this. Doesn't really matter. semester grades are done, correct? And if they're going to gain eligibility, they can still gain eligibility for the fall. Okay, what does matter is what you institute starting in the fall and what you should and are able to institute, because every parent, just like mine, every parent has to initial that they read and agreed to all those things. So all these athletes that are reading and agreeing to your current home campus are reading and agreeing to the 2.0 right now. So keep that in mind when you move forward with this. I hope that you decide to table it, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Robert Pargas.
Hey, Doug. This is Robert Vargas. I'm going to speak from the perspective of an athlete who was skating by. I feel like I'm a perfect example of an athlete who's skating by for most of his adult life, not because of poor parenting or terrible friends, simply because I was not held accountable to a higher standard in my most impressionable years, which is through high school. Now, I don't blame the school system entirely, but as a kid, I was told to raise my hand to speak or ask permission to use the Oval Office. I think that the school system is a bit responsible for a small majority of success and failures as kids. But because I was an okay athlete, some teachers were bumping my grades or allowing me to just skate by all the way to my senior year, just to be kept checked by reality. June 15, 2006, the day before graduation, 17-year-old me punching my teacher's door, blaming her for my failures. When in all reality, I was the one that failed with a 59.8%, and I was not allowed to walk. I assumed that I was going to receive a passing grade in class, a class that I didn't pay attention in, a class that I hardly attended, which in reality was the reason why I failed. Life for the better half of 10 years after high school was extremely hard because of that. The real world doesn't care about your 59.8% or your school records that you may have at that time, or the fact that you're a Division V athlete at a small high school. Life doesn't care about anything you've done before turning 18, getting thrown into the real world. So I had to find out the hard way in 2007, my freshman year at Modesto Junior College, when I assumed my coaches were going to take care of my grades the same way they did in high school. Man, was I wrong. I got redshirted for being academically declined as a freshman. Fast forward to 2014 of December, I ran into my outfield coach who said to me, you know, Pargas, you're one of the most athletic students that I've ever had to cut, and it really truly hurt me to cut you your sophomore year. I said to him, if you don't mind me asking, what's an athletic student? He said, that's you, somebody that applied themselves more on the ball field than in the classrooms. He said, how did you even get through high school? What I'm getting at is the 2.0 and no Fs is what I was honored when I was in high school. And I personally think that it should be raised to 2.5, no Fs, and maybe a D. Because had I had taken these standards a little bit more seriously, I think I would have taken my next opportunity a lot more seriously. So I'm going to leave everybody with this. My kids and any of the kids that I coach in this community will always be held to a higher standard. First and foremost, their academics come first. I will always tell these kids to be a student athlete, not an athletic student, because your rubber legs and rocket arm don't care about your 59.8% when it comes to the real world. Thanks.
All right.
Hello, my name is Sarah Wright, and I'm an Oristema graduate class of 2011. After graduating, I moved to Western Montana, where I lived for 8 years before moving to Vancouver and eventually Portland. I moved home very recently for 2 reasons. First and foremost, I'd like to spend some more time with my family, and secondary, because of all the places I've lived. I can't imagine raising a family in any other school system or community. I was an average high school student, and I wasn't a student athlete. This policy change would not only not have affected me at all, but I want more for the next generation. Setting such a low or really insignificant expectation for something as important as foundational education is a slippery slope. If you make this move, you're potentially robbing our kids of more than just developing a basic work ethic. You're teaching them that in a world of limitless resources, that they have not only the right to fail, but to be rewarded for it. You're teaching them that the world owes them something, and that knowledge and education come secondary to something as insignificant as high school sports. I think sports are an incredible outlet for teens. They teach stress management and teamwork and how to win, but more importantly, how to lose. But foundational education is irreplaceable. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 6, approval of agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as read? That's later. Oh. Thank you, Tim.
I'll second.
Thank you, Frank. Janice? Oh. Thanks.
Aye.
Tim, Mr. Rivas?
Aye.
And myself, aye. Ms. Hurst absent, 4-0. Item number 7, information discussion items, section A will be our attendance awards, and that'll be presented by Dr. Seha.
Good evening, members of the board and Superintendent Pruitt. First award is the Staff Attendance Award with 95.76% attendance for the month of May. Bonita, so Representative from Virginia. Okay, for top student attendance with 93.23% for the month of May, we have Von Renner. Mr. Cope, you can stay up here because the least chronically absent students also goes to Von Renner. However, that award is packed up somewhere, from what I understand. All right. So you can pack up that other one and we'll be looking for it in August. So great. So congratulations.
Item B, recognition of retiree Kim Bencourt.
Good evening. I'd like to take a couple of minutes and talk about Kim for a moment. Kim's a passionate reader with a long and interesting story. To have a career in one organization that spans 40 years is becoming more and more rare. 40 years ago, Kim Betancourt came to the NCLUSD to teach first grade, newly married and out of college. She educated more than one generation of Newman students, first at Von Renner, later at Hunt. She had some years in a classroom all year, and later during year-round track, she rotated each trimester. She always jokes she never had to interview for a job. Over the years, she developed relationships with school staff, students, and parents. She was passionate about literacy and became a reading specialist. She was tapped by Ed Felt to become an administrator, serving as a principal and most recently as assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction. She and I developed the LCAP process, bringing budget and program together to support students. She always provided development opportunities to hundreds of teachers over the years, always looking to make them better and improving opportunities for students. Kim has positively impacted thousands of students, teachers, and families over the course of her career. She leaves huge shoes to fill, and we wish her all the best in the next chapter of her story. She's led with integrity and honesty, and it's been a privilege to serve next to her.
Item C, public hearing for our LCAP plan, Ms. Mendoza.
Actually, Mrs. Betancourt's going to.
Oh, okay. One last time.
Two, yeah, last one. do it this way. So we're going to give you an overview of the LCAP. I'm going to give you more of the actions that we're doing, and Carolyn's going to attach the budget to those actions, I believe, next. So I wanted to give a little bit of background. It's been a while on what the local control and accountability plan is, what we call the LCAP. It's a 3-year plan that describes goals, actions, services, and expenditures. It kind of marries what we do in the classroom with the budget to make sure we tell the story for Newman. What Newman prioritizes, which we've heard a lot about today, we prioritize our students' education, and that's extremely important. And we want to support positive student outcomes that address our priorities. This is how and why. It's the how, what, and why of the programs and services that meet our local needs. So it measures these areas, and we have to have metrics and actions in that pretty much address all 8 of these areas. I'm not going to read them all to you, but you can see most of them involve academic achievement or parental involvement in school climate. Basic services is what the classrooms we offer, the staff, the facilities. We talk a lot, Newman gets money, I believe, what's our percentage? We have 74% of our population are unduplicated students. And all that means is they're either an English learner, low income, or foster youth. And they only get counted one time. So they can be all 3 of those, but they only count one time. So close to 75%, 3/4 of our students are unduplicated. Because of that, we receive funding that we can use for all students. But we do have to, in our LCAP, expressly spell out how it's supporting our unduplicated students. So for this 3-year cycle, we're starting a new 3-year cycle. These are our goals and actions. We looked at areas of need based on our data. Improved academic achievement for all students with a focus on math and writing, improved SBAC scores. It's a 1-year score. It comes one time a year. We can't ignore it, but we also have to understand that there are lots of different ways that students show success and academic achievement other than the SBAC, but it is something we want to pay attention to and look at. Suspension rate, continue to decrease that. We have done a great job decreasing it so far. Coming after COVID, there was a high suspension rate. We've actually decreased that suspension rate across the board, but not enough yet. Academic achievement for students with disabilities in particular, we have a gap for those students, and it's widening, not closing. So we need to make sure we're addressing their needs and offering support, especially at the secondary level. The high school is doing some really good work in the special ed department right now that is going to support these students in the future. So they're actually partnering with the gen ed teachers also to do some really good work and offer some supports to our special education. And our academic achievement, our English learners, we're going to have to focus on our long-term English learners, which are mostly in the junior high and the high school. I want to add a little bit more data to this that might support some of the information that we were hearing here tonight about after 40 years, excellence isn't an option for Newman. It's what we should always be striving for. And that includes, we want scholar athletes doing their best all the time. That's just how it should be. Every student can be a scholar athlete. It's not just the kid that wins the award at the end of the year. Our F rate has tripled since 2014 at the high school. And I think a lot of what was said today has contributed to that. It was 5% in 2014. It's 16% now for math and ELA. Kids have stopped feeling like they're accountable to anyone. And I think what you're doing with the board policy is on track to also pair up with this data. We have 250 kids on average, a whole grade level that does credit recovery in the summer. That's way too many students doing credit recovery. And that's been the norm in this district. And we've got to get away from that. So I think part of the LCAP is also supporting that we need to raise our standards. We need to hold kids accountable, and we need to start focusing in on some of these areas that kids have just kind of gotten used to being able to do whatever they want. So we need to kind of get that back. So goal 1 is all students will receive a high quality education in a safe and welcoming environment with equitable high expectations, access to technology and instruction in the state standards. So these are the priorities that that addresses. So those 8 priorities that I showed you earlier, this goal addresses those priorities. These are some of the actions. I'm not going to read every single one of them. Some of them are very similar, career and tech ed, but we really want to focus in on the English learners, special ed, and improving the academic outcomes for students. We actually have, I believe, some intervention in there to support that, supplemental resources and professional development. Teacher retention is important. Consistency for kids is important. And people that are, how do I want to say, not married to our district, but who believe in our district and come from our district and have been in our district a long time, also promote that consistency and support for students. Goal 2 is parent engagement and supporting parents and families and connecting with schools in the community, getting them involved, engaged. With the advent of social media, texting and emailing, and there's been a huge shift in how we communicate with parents and what they consider engagement. So we have to just keep up with that. We cannot forget that the importance of face-to-face communication sometimes with parents, or even a phone call. We've gotten away from that, and I think that's something we need to kind of work on and to kind of adjust how we communicate with parents. I used to love it when a parent would just stop by my classroom after school and we'd have a quick chat. That kind of has gone by the wayside, and everybody wants everything on Parent Square, but hopefully we get communication support for families in a lot of different ways. So we have to look at our at-risk families. Chronic absenteeism is also part of an action for this goal. Health services. We've done a lot of work in that and in the mental health and SEL supports for kids. And we had to add a goal this year for what we call equity multiplier funds. And we received these from the state because we have a very, a population at Westside. This money is meant for Westside and Foothill, or just Westside? Westside, because our population there is very transient. The kids are in and out, back and forth. So because of that high transiency rate, we have been awarded some money to address the needs of those students. And we've been working with Ms. Esquivas to ensure we have an instructional aide there, support with our special ed kids there, campus supervisor, and I believe we're working on getting there a full-time academic counselor for Westside, which will be, I think, greatly appreciated by the students and families at that school. So some actions for Westside in particular are to decrease the suspension rates at Westside and improve credit recovery completion at Westside. And those are some of the things we're going to be adding with the what's called equity multiplier money. And that's kind of the action side of it. The LCAPs in the board, the whole document is in there. It's about 70 pages long. If you want to look at it, where I would focus my attention is the goals and the actions, and you'll see the money right by there. And it's not, this is the public hearing. It's not necessarily approved yet. So any comments or questions you have, you can always email anyone on the cabinet or the superintendent. And he actually has to respond by law to your email if you ask him a question. And I think that's it.
For item number C, does anybody have any public comment for the LCAP?
I have just a comment that
Go ahead, Tim.
this is a summary. We just saw the slideshow, and the actual document, which I think is 76 pages, is right there on our website too. So you can read through the whole thing if you want to. It's kind of boilerplate. It's sort of, there's a form that the state sort of sends out so that it's similar for us and other school districts and that kind of thing. But there are, you know, individual pieces of information about how we're doing and what we're spending the money on. So again, if you want more information than this, just go to our website and there's the whole 76 pages.
Anyone else? All right, item D, public hearing for the 2024-25 adopted budget proposal.
Good evening. Attached to the board backup, I think available for the public is also the narrative that we put in, which is about 20 pages of really in-depth information about the whole budget process and all the demographics and everything that goes into making up the budget. So this budget year was a little bit different than the past several years. So I really wanted to boil it down and focus on the most important items. One of which is the end of the one-time funding, our enrollment and ADA projections, which are how we base the funding that we do get in. What's happening with the Prop 98, what the governor and the LAO are calling the Prop 98 maneuver, which I'll talk a little bit about that, and what is our overall budget position going into next year. So we are coming into the end of the ESSER era, which is, the ESSER was about $11 million that came in post-COVID in one-time funding, and we've had up through September of 2024 to spend all of it. So that when you have $11 million infusion into your budget, when that goes away, that some definite changes have to be made. Now, because that money is going away, we do still have some other state one-time sources, and I was making a list before the meeting. And we have different funds that do different things. What Mrs. Betancourt was talking about with the LCAP, the LCAP contains not only the local control funding formula, which is our ADA based funding, but it also includes actions that are tied to sometimes one-time funds, sometimes ongoing categorical funds. So we have several that we're still working on. Educator effectiveness money, which we can use for professional development. We have an arts and music block grant. We have the equity multiplier money, which is new this year. We still have some A through G funding, which is which is used to increase our rate of students completing the A through G pathway requirements. We have a learning recovery block grant, which is enabling us to keep our intervention teachers and the intervention aides for several more years. We've kind of planned that out. Then we have some ongoing categorical funding, which is our Beyond the Bell expanded learning program. We have lottery, both two types of lottery funding, and we have ag incentive. We have some child nutrition money, which is in the general fund. We have ethnic studies. We have several other grants that we've gotten that are, some are one-time, some are ongoing. So we really want to be strategic with how we use those. We just received words last week that we received the Golden State Pathways Implementation Grant, which is about $500,000 to redo the wood shop. So we're working on that. We have 5 years to expend that. It'll probably take 2 to 2.5 to go through that. So when we look at figuring out how much money we're going to have to work with and to fund the actions in our LCAP, we look at the enrollment. We're looking at probably flat enrollment for next year. We had 3161 this year. We're projecting the same for next year. It's the safest projection until we see what is going to happen. We may have a few more kids than we have currently. We have not seen a influx of students from the new housing that's over here. So we're not comfortable projecting a huge increase. We had our funded ADA, which this year was 2982. That's based on a 3-year average that included a hold harmless year during COVID, which was an artificially high year. That year falls out of the 3-year average next year. So in order to balance the budget, because everybody's heard about the huge $1 billion of funding gap that there is, there was a difference between the tax revenue because of taxes were collected late last year. there was a shortfall. And so now the governor has had to figure out how to undo that. So there's been some maneuvering, for lack of a better word. And basically, the governor said, well, we overpaid schools in 2022. But that year's closed. We can't go back and deduct from that. So they're gonna have to take it out of the next 2 years. So the state is going to be looking at programs outside of Prop 98, which funds schools. They're looking at cutting state operations by about 8%. They're looking at eliminating vacant state positions. They're looking at eliminating the next year's deficit and the year after that by using the one-time rainy day funds. And they're looking at one-time funding that they were gonna put out, and they're not going to do that. So they're looking at several different ways to make the budget balance. And there is some question about, is this maneuver legal? Then I think that's gonna be fought by the courts. So next year is a little bit tentative. He's projecting that we're not gonna have revenue deferrals. But that remains to be seen, because if things are deemed to be unconstitutional, then he may have to take other measures. So looking at next year's budget, we're looking at, we still have, this year we had about over 60 million in revenue. Next year we're about 56 million. A lot of that is the one-time funding that's not there anymore. Some of that is the decreased average daily enrollment. So we're looking at a general fund deficit of about 1.8 million. The reason that is, we made a significant budget cuts earlier in the year, but then our special ed population is growing and our increase of services that we are providing is growing. And so our contribution to our special ed program grew up by over $1 million for next year. So where it looks like we had plenty of money, or if you see, okay, we had in the unrestricted, if you see, okay, we had 43 million in revenue and 37 million in expenditures. Okay, that sounds great. We should have a surplus. No, because $8 million went between special ed and maintenance. So there is going to be it is going to look like a deficit next year, but we are still okay. We have some designations in our ending balance. That part of that 1.5 million is for the settlements, for the negotiated settlements for the bargaining units that we will be paying out next year. There is just not time to get those paid out before the end of this fiscal year, and it will be called a prior year obligation. So next year we base the budget on a 1.07% statutory cost of living. Whether or not that will be entirely funded, still remains to be seen. And our unduplicated percentage is a 3-year average of about just under 72%. So our entitlement for just the LCFF, there's a base grant that is so much per student. Then there are grade span add-ons for kindergarten to 3rd grade and 9th through 12th grade. And then the supplemental and concentration grants are for districts that have over 55% unduplicated. So that is additional funding, and that we have to specifically call out to what we're doing with that in the LCAP. And then we have add-ons, which are for transportation and TK programs, because those are more expensive to run with staffing requirements that they have. So I am happy to answer any questions. I think that's the last slide. Oh, you know what? There is one more. I'm sorry. We do have some facility projects that we're working on. We're finishing up the Von Renner multi-use room. And the TK modernization, I think they've moved on to that phase. They will be moving the offices over the summer and they've begun construction on on retrofitting the classrooms. We do have a couple of small fencing projects at a couple of the sites that the principals have requested. And then we will be going to bid for an additional restroom building at Hunt in the late summer, I believe, Matt. In late August, we should be ready for that to go out to bid. That's past the DSA approval process. So we're getting that ready to go. Our biggest focus next year, as far as facilities, is going to be maintaining all of the HVAC units and making sure that we can keep those repaired as they go out. Like now that is the last slide.
Any questions for Ms. Mendoza? All right, item number 8, the consent calendar. Since calendar items are routine in nature and usually do not require board discussion, individual items may be removed by board members and presented for discussion as separate actions. The consent calendar will be adopted by a roll call vote. Can I get a motion to approve the consent calendar as listed?
I'll make that.
Thank you, Mr. Rizar.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Rivas. Mr. Rizar,
Aye.
Ms. Conforti. Ms. Hurst is absent. Ms. Rivas.
Aye.
And myself, Mr. Corrales, aye, passes 4-0, 1 absent. Action items. Action items number 9, global adoption of the reviewed Numa County Unified Board Policies Index 12 to 18. Numa County Unified School District 000 series, philosophy, goals, objectives, and comprehensive plans, 1000 series, community relations, 2000 series, administration, 3000 series, business and non-instructional operations, 4000 series, personnel, 5000 series, students, 6,000 series instruction, 7,000 series facilities, 9,000 series board bylaws. Questions or comments? No, you can't speak. Tim, you have any comments?
Well, I think we've heard from most of the speakers, if not all of the speakers here today, that they'd like to see us at least hesitate when it comes to adopting, a policy that's going to restrict or govern who's eligible for athletics. And it seems to me that perhaps we should take a step back and take a little more time to consider that particular area. As far as the rest, if anybody has looked at it, it's very exhaustive. I think one of the speakers, Mr. Felber, I think mentioned that it's basically the way it seems like to me that we get this is the State School Board Association, and it gives us this as sort of a template. Again, I mentioned that with the LCSF or LCAP. And it's the hope that we're not only doing something that's within the framework of the state law, because each year they revise these. So the legislature passes a new law that has to do with something like, I don't know, the chairs that you have to use in a classroom. And the next thing we know is that we've got a policy suddenly that comes along that says this is the kind of classroom chairs we want to have. But when it's something more individual for the district, like the athletic policy, it does seem to me that we should probably spend some time talking to the people who are actually doing the coaching, talking to some of the parents, talking to the administrators who have to administer these rules too, and then come up with a little more fine-tuned proposal. So anyway, that would be my 2 cents. Anybody else feel the same way? Here, I can do it.
This
Yeah.
Can we curse it?
This is it's gonna be my voice, but imagine it coming out of her mouth. I hope our staff thinks of academics before sports. A 2.0 and no Fs are a good choice for our district and our students. That's what she said.
I'm with Tim. I say we, I think we should step back table. That's my opinion.
So there's a lot of things that are, this is just my 2 cents. I've had numerous kids come through Orsemba. Everybody here in this room wants all of our kids to get 4.0. If you're not expecting that, then we're doing something wrong, right? So, there's a whole bunch of literature and language that we literally went through for like the last 2.5 nights, right? Part of the problem is there's a lot of stuff that says one thing and there's a lot of stuff that we don't follow. Then over here, it says something totally different and we follow some of that and we don't follow some of this, right? So it's, and then the CIF says something totally different, right? So there's a lot of different parts and pieces that we have to sift through to put out the best product we can with our students going forward. Do I think we need to have every kid get 3.5 and a B+ or better, or you're not playing volleyball? No, absolutely not, right? I have a list here of the 26 area high schools, including 5 private schools, and their standard is 2.0 with 1 F. So why would at Orsemba High School or Yolo Junior High in a 3 stoplight town, I would try to push something that's going to be more stricter, right? That's not feasible. Especially when you listen to her presentation on, we have 70% of our, students are that meet one of those categories, right? So, but I tell you what, we have a new management and we have a new leadership team at Orsemba High School. We're going to give her the opportunity to put together a plan with her team to come back and give us recommendations on how we're going to get to that happy medium of getting all of our kids better grades to get on the football field, baseball field, volleyball court, etc. It is kind of rushed, right? We already had some things that we were kind of discussing, and I appreciate our employees and stuff coming up and making us aware, because a lot of these documents, there's thousands of pages. The first thing I do when somebody says something, I have to go back and I have to read and look and just to make sure we're talking about the same sheet of music. So that's what we're up against. Frank's got a little something to say right now. He's going to make a motion. We're going to pull it off there. We're going to dissect it. We're going to let the high school management team bring us back something hopefully by August or September's meeting, and then work towards the end result of the high school. And it doesn't need to be like set in stone. Like, we need to keep evaluating. Is this working? Are we getting more kids out there because they're doing their homework? We just got to keep constantly evaluating and seeing if our processes are working, because if they're not, then we're failing. Right. And that's not an easy pill to swallow for me. So we are gonna do a little something here. We're gonna take some time. We're gonna get a lot of people that involved at the high school level. And we're gonna take it from there. Okay.
All right. Can I just add, so Frank's gonna make a motion that pulls out that specific section that deals with the academics and eligibility. Okay,
Correct.
that makes, because I don't know what section it is.
Any other comment? All right.
Good.
Yeah, go ahead.
You're whispering. I move that we approve the global adoption of the exception of AR 6145. And like the sites to review the AR and submit their recommendation to the superintendent, Mr. Pruitt, and reviewed by the August board meeting.
I'll second it.
That sounds fine with me.
Mr. Bizarre.
Aye.
Ms. Conforti. Ms. Hurst is absent.
You say aye.
Ms. Rivas.
Aye.
And myself vote aye as well. This is 4-0. Action item B, approve resolution 2324 authorizing year-end transfers. Can I get a motion for item number B?
I'll motion.
Or actually, do we have any speakers on B? Anybody have anything to say on B? No? Okay. Frank, motion first?
Yeah.
Can I get a second?
I think Janet seconded it.
She's second.
Tim?
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
Janice,
not
okay.
me.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna vote for it.
It's not yet. Mr. Bizarre?
Aye.
Mr. Forty? Thank you. Ms. Hurst is absent. Ms. Rivas? And myself, I passes 4-0. Item C, approval of memorandum of understanding between the Newman Crozine Unified School District and the City of Newman School Resource Officer 2425 in the amount of $189,122.92. Questions or comments on item number C? All right, can I get a motion for item number C?
I'll make that motion. Are you holding something up?
No.
Okay. I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Second?
She's second.
Oh, Jennison. Mr. Razar?
Aye.
Ms. Conforti? Ms. Hurst is absent. Mr. Rivas?
Aye.
And myself votes aye, passes 4-0. Item number D, approval of state California multiple award schedule, CMAS for RJ Commercial Flooring Company. Any comments or questions?
No, I'll make that motion though.
All right, thank you, Tim.
I'll second.
Mr. Razar?
Aye.
Ms. Conforti? Ms. Hurst is absent. Mr. Rivas?
Aye.
Myself, Mr. Cabral votes aye, 4-0 passes. Item E, consider approval of high school principal contract for Leslie Suffolk. This contract provides for certificated employment of Leslie Suffolk as Orstema High School principal for the approval of this contract for high school principal commencing 1 July 2024. Leslie Suffolk will be placed on step 6 of the salary schedule at $155,007. All other terms and conditions of the employee contract will remain in force and effect. Any comments or questions on item E? Motion.
I'll make that motion to approve it.
I'll second it.
Mr. Bazar.
Aye.
Ms. Conforti. Ms. Hurst is absent. Mr. Rivas.
Aye.
Ms. Cabral votes aye, 4-0 passes. And she is here tonight. Welcome to the team officially, all right? Item F, approved tentative agreement between Newman Crozine Unified School District and the Newman Crozine Teachers Association for the 23 to 24 school year. Questions or comments on item F? Motion?
I'll make that motion. Jen second it.
Mr. Razar?
Aye.
Ms. Conforti? Ms. Hurst, absent. Mr. Rivas?
Aye.
And myself was 4-0. Item number G, we have a speaker tonight. Matthew Clark, you want to go on up to the podium and have at it, bud?
All right, good evening. Matthew Clark. I was lead negotiator this year for NCLTA. Worked with the district's team to get to the settlement that you just approved. So thank you. Appreciate that. In item G, there are 2 salary schedules and an extended teacher pay document that have been attached. And the 24-25 salary schedule that's listed there as the 24-25 salary schedule with a 0% raise. That has not been negotiated and it's not agreed upon. I wanted to make sure I said that publicly. I'm not blaming anybody. I know why it was done. It's to reflect the reduction in work days. But I've already been getting phone calls because the agenda went out from some of our members who are concerned that we may have misrepresented in our tentative agreement because they're saying, well, we didn't agree to a 0% on the 24-25. And as the association, we had asked that not be listed that way, but I understand why it was. So I just want to publicly say, and I think both teams are in agreement, that the 24-25 salary schedule is unsettled at this time. Thank you.
Item number G, approve NCLT schedule, salary schedule for 23-24 and 24-25. Do I get a motion?
I'll make that motion. I think we just heard that both sides agree to the comments that were just made.
Second?
I'll second.
Mr. Razar?
Aye.
Ms. Conforti? Ms. Hurst is absent. Mr. Rivas? And Mr. Cabral was 4-0. Item H, approved resolution 23-24. Next, number 25, ordering governing board member election. Anybody want to comment or question on that?
Well, I have a comment. If I can.
Go ahead, Mr. Bizarre.
I think that what you'll see is that during the next election cycle, which is just about to start, there are going to be 3 openings on the board. My seat is one of them. Hers is another, and Ms. Hurst has at least indicated that she's not going to run. She could always change her mind. I'm not trying to bind her by that, but I'm not going to change my mind. And I would just urge anybody out here in the audience, but anybody who's listening to this, who's interested in this, you can find out what the district is. The honest truth is, I don't know today what the actual borders of even my district are. You have to look at the map, figure out, do I live in this district? You know, whatever one you find you live in, that's the one you want to run for, unless you're going to go buy another house in the other district, but most of us aren't going to do that. So anyway, I'm just urging people who are interested, look at it, start thinking about it. At least from my point of view, it's not a tremendous amount of work. It's a rewarding thing to do. I've certainly learned a lot over the last 13 years. You're a fun group to work with. And I would urge people in the community to think about it and think about how they want to shape the district going forward. It doesn't require a lot of money. We don't pay a lot of money. It's about $300 a month, I think, that you get for being a school board person. But the costs to run a campaign, at least in my experience, aren't that great. There is an initial cost when you write a candidate statement. They charge you for that. But if nobody runs against you, they give you your money back for whatever you paid. Then, at least in my experience, the traditional way to run around here is you get some signs printed up with your name on it. You go talk to your neighbors and see if you can talk them into putting that sign on their yard. Other than that, I mean, if you feel like it, you could do a lot more. You could, hire a plane to fly over Newman with your name on it, or do anything you want. But it's not that hard to run. The background you need is what you have. I mean, you don't need any particular background. The more interested you are in education, I think the better it would be. From my point of view, having children in the district would be a real plus, but there's no requirement. So again, my comment is, if you're listening to me at home or anywhere else, think about it. It's not a terrible burden. It's a very rewarding position to have, and I think the community needs somebody to run. Otherwise, what will happen is then the other board members will try to then fill those spots, and as you can imagine, that's going to be cumbersome if 3 of us are not here and there's only 2 other board members. So anyway, hopefully somebody runs. If a bunch of people run, that's fine too. Again, it's not a terribly expensive process to run, and as the effort you put into it will be rewarded, but it'll be up to you to decide how much effort I'm going to put in running for school board. Am I going to go around every night and try to shake everybody's hand? I didn't. Are you going to talk at various events? Sure. You should probably go to the various little community events that we have around the community and try to explain why you're running. But that's it. Again, my comment is, please run if you are interested.
All right, item H, I need a motion for approve the governing election coming up in November.
A motion.
I'll second that.
Mr. Bizarre?
Aye.
Mr. Forty? Ms. Hurst is absent. Mr. Rivas?
Aye.
Myself, scroll 4-0. Aye. Item I, consideration of moving the June 17th, the school board meeting to June 24th. I'll just cover this really quick. The reason why we're moving it back 2 weeks is to allow the both bargaining units to finalize all their paperwork for all their raises and stuff like that. The 17th was just not enough time for them to get all that done through their regional offices and stuff like that. So we didn't want to have another special meeting, so we just pushed it back a little bit, and we'll be able to cover all that in that one meeting on the 24th at 5 p.m. Can I get a motion to move the board meeting from June 17th to the 24th?
She is.
Second?
I'll second.
Mr. Rizar?
Aye.
Mr. Forty? Ms. Hurst is absent. Mr. Rivas?
Aye.
And myself, Ms. Corral votes aye, passes 4-0. And then one absent. Item number 10, future agenda items. We don't have that listed for tonight. Item number 11, superintendent's report.
First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight and getting up and speaking at the mic. I know that's not easy, and the coaches that got up and spoke about high expectations, they absolutely live that on the court and in their classrooms, and you see it all the time. So I appreciate your comments. I appreciate the input. The board tonight tabled the AR, but the board policy was moved forward. But the board policy is exactly the board policy that was there before. So it's the AR that is what we're asking you to come back and do the work to change the AR. So if you look at the old board policy, that is the 2.0. I actually have the copy here, but it's the 2.0 and maintain graduation progress. It's the AR that allows the ERB, the 2.0, 1F, those things. So that is, and some people confuse the AR for the board policy. So again, we are asking Orstem to come back, do the work, give us what your staff, giving everybody a voice on what you want your eligibility process to be. This is Leslie's turn to put, or sorry, Ms. Suffolk's time to put her stamp on Orstemba and of what it's going to be and moving it forward. So, and we want to encourage the sites to have some autonomy and make those decisions. So then after that, I want to say to the YOLO and to Orstemba, your graduation ceremonies were awesome, very well attended, very well. I think they did a great job of the parents staying in the stands all the way until the end and allowing the students to get recognized all the way to the end as well. So great ceremonies, just right for the evening, and it's nice to see. So again, thank you. And have a great summer. So, yeah.
All right. Be quick tonight. Board report, Mr. Bizarre, would you like to start off?
Sure. I just wanted to congratulate Mrs. Betancourt on her retirement. She taught Olivia Bizarre, my soon to be soon to be 24-year-old daughter. And my wife was always mad that she didn't teach the other two kids. But she changed position at that point, and so she wasn't eligible to teach them, or they weren't eligible to be in a class with her. But that 24-year-old who I just mentioned, or she's going to be 24 next week, I think in part because of Mrs. Betancourt was inspired so that she's actually graduated now from college, but she starts her teaching program to try to get a teaching credential and next year at UC Santa Cruz. So anyway, you were inspirational in setting her on that path, and I'm sure you've been inspirational in setting others, some of whom are in the room apparently. And so congratulations. Anyway, I too thought this was one of the best graduations we've ever had. Some great speeches were given. It was very orderly, very happy occasion as far as I could tell for everybody. Anyway, that's my comments.
Thank you. Ms. Hurst is absent. Mr. Rivas.
Congratulations, Ms. Betancourt. You were my first grade teacher. Okay, I know I wasn't your favorite student, but I know. I did attend actually 3 graduations. First, I went to the Stanislaus one, and I was thinking that's going to be forever, but no, they were on it. And then I went to YOLO, less than an hour. And then I heard somebody say, "Oh, get ready for tomorrow. High school's gonna be 3 hours." And I was like, "Oh boy." The sun's And it went perfect. It went smoothly. Everybody spoke. All the speakers, everything was great. We had good weather. It wasn't as hot as I thought. Other than that, enjoy your guys' summer. See you guys in August.
No, June 24th.
Oh, yes. I'm telling them to enjoy their summer. See you in August.
We'll let Ms. Conforti get off the hook tonight. All right, hold on. Let me try to decipher this. Here.
She said that the West Side grad night or graduation was well done.
All right, couple things, Ms. Bencourt, thank you for the 40 years of service to, the district, and it's something special when you can think about how many kids that is. That's a lot of number. Maybe Mr. Felber can tell us, but that number is very large, how many kids that you actually taught through the school district over the years. So thank you on that. I also attended the YOLO promotion and the Orstema graduation. Thank you to everybody who helped put on that event, set it up, run it. It looked good as always. New scoreboard looked great. Couple changes for next year though. I don't want to let no secrets out, but we're gonna change it up a bit, But after that, that's all I had really. Got a couple months off to recharge your batteries and get back to the 2025 school year, right? So unless anybody has anything else, we'll adjourn the meeting. Frank, you want to give us the official iPhone time? 7:20. 7:20 p.m. All right, meeting's adjourned 7:20 p.m. Thank you everyone for coming.
What do I sign?